Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Barnes, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees, and I have a few announcements for you. November 28th, Super Suppers is at Eagle Harbor Church from 4:45 to 6. Cedars Social Action Committee works with Kol Shalom to provide a free dinner for anyone. November 29th is our meditation group at Cedar Center from 5 to 6. And for more information on any of this, please go to the Beacon for anything else. December 6th is a new Wednesday group is forming. It's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It is a group that will discuss a wide range of topics related to the LGBTQ plus community, particular concerns and challenges affecting the mental health of queer people. And also then on December 8th, Cedars will be having an open house from 3 to 5 at our Cedars Center. And Peter also had an additional announcement.
Yes, I'm very grateful for the time we've spent together this year, and I'd like to give everyone in the congregation, or at least everyone who would like one, a Christmas present. And that is an album of Christmas music for solo guitar. All you need to do is give me your email address, and I will send you the tracks. I'll be wandering around after the service. So just go ahead and give me your address, and I will send you an album of Christmas music.
Thank you so very much. It's a beautiful gift. And also Fran.
My name's Fran Corton, and I think some of you know I'm chair of the music committee, and today is the last time we'll be singing our hymn of the month for this month, which is Welcome Table, and I hope you will all just put down your hymnals and sing along. The thing I want you to know, Rebecca will be leading you, and she says they're not going to do it. Oh, Whatever. So I want you to know that on December 17th, we have a very special service, and it is the Hymn of the Month service. And we are going to do all 10 hymns of the month, because we started in February, and the last one is today. So I hope you will all turn out and sing these favorite hymns. So I want you to know the music committee works hard to choose these hymns. We scour the hymnals and make our lists and choose carefully. And these are hymns that you love, and you'll love to sing them. December 17th. What is that? Is that 3 weeks from now? I think so. So come on out and join us for this amazing service. Thank you.
I'm going to speak to my regular microphone. I have more announcement. We have a guest here who is going to be starting Wednesday sessions at Cedar Center. Support group, I believe, is what it's about. His name is Kenny Davis. And I wanted you to come on up here, Kenny, and introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you're going to be doing, who you are, what your credentials are,
Of course.
and your relationship to this community so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Hello, can you? Oh, it feels more official using a microphone. So hello, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm a little nervous, but also excited to be speaking with you today. So my name is Kenny Davis. I am a licensed mental health counselor associate based in Bremerton. And I am with a practice called Thrive Counseling, where we specialize in the queer community. We serve everyone, but we specialize in working with members of the LGBTQ community. I'm a recent transplant from Texas. So when I moved to Bremerton, I started to look around and really saw that, especially compared to the other side of the Puget, that resources for the queer community are pretty limited over here in Kitsap. But one of those resources that I was able to find through my research was Cedars. And I was super excited to see that, and then also to see that it was led by Zach. So I reached out to him, and we had a great meeting. He was really warm and welcoming. I think we spoke for about an hour and a half in his office. And we brainstormed what would really be helpful for the queer community here in Bainbridge, for Cedars. And so we ultimately decided to create a support group for members of the queer community. So the support group is called Somewhere Over the Rainbow on Bainbridge Island, so I'm a sucker for a good pop culture reference. And so this first meeting is definitely open to both members of the community and allies. So if you have a loved one, or if you just want to kind of figure out how better to support your loved one, this first meeting will kind of talk about the group more generally. I also want to address the holidays coming up, which can be a really difficult time for members of the queer community, especially if they have family who is not affirming of who they are. So if you are queer, how do I navigate that? If you're not, how do I be a better ally to support my loved ones during this time of year? So our first meeting is December 6th at 6 p.m., and we're hoping that it will be monthly. And then I'll let Zach know what each topic will be, and he'll kind of announce that in the newsletter, so you can join us. So please spread that throughout the community. I'd love for it to be a support here at Cedars, but also the larger queer community on the island. And then if you are also needing individual therapy, once again, I'm with Thrive. So if you're queer or not, we serve anxiety, depression, whatever that looks like. Feel free to reach out. Even if we're not a good fit, I would love to be able to provide you with resources so that you can get some help if you need it, or if you know someone who does. So finally, just thank you for letting me speak this morning. It's so important to have congregations that are affirming, and it means a lot to me to be able to be a part of this and to be a part of the advocacy and social justice that we can be a part of in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kenny. And please stay after at coffee hour and chat with Kenny after service.
Yes, for the service. If you have any questions or want to introduce yourself, please feel free to do so.
Hello, everyone. Can you just raise your hand if you can hear me? Hey. Okay, good. Thank you for being here this morning, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but out of abundance of caution and community care, not feeling well, having a cough and congestion, today I felt it was a better idea to not be there in person. And so we are making use of some technology today, which I know in some ways probably is not ideal, but here we are together. Before I share our opening words, I would like to just invite you all in the room there to take a moment and just turn to your neighbor and greet one another to welcome each other into this space. So take a moment now. Again, I want to welcome you to this service today, and for our opening words to begin our service, to begin our exploration of the complicated topic of Revelation, I'd like to share these words by Reverend Gallardo. And Ted is someone that I know personally from my time in seminary, and is actually the current president of the UU Church of the Philippines, one of our associate international partners. And so these words come from Tet, and they're titled, "There's My Temple." There's my temple, believer, unbeliever, or wild one. You are welcome. We have no definition of who we are, but human. We have no code but that of respect. We have no creed but of equality. There's my temple. Identity seekers, sinners, stateless or not, you are welcome. We have no constraints on expression but space. We have no code but to listen to poetry between the silence and the surrender. There's my temple. Nature tripper, urban dweller, or saint, you are welcome. How shall we divide the world but by our breath? We have no pope above us, no infallible bull. We have no judgment but in terms of harm. There's my temple. History maker, marginalized, unorganized, you are welcome. We have no covenant among us but mutual assistance. We insist on no assumptions and doubt moral facts. We are free to theorize with emotion and call it hope. There's my temple. Unbecoming expert robe or disrobe, you are welcome. We have no dwarves or giants. Goliath fell long ago. We have no seal on Revelation. Tentative is truth. Led by your desires and served by your power, there's my temple. There is not one way of being human. Not even Superman. We have no world but that which we create together. There is as much wisdom in harmony as in dissent. This word. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Peter. Full disclosure, I did not study the book of Revelation for this reflection. I hope you are not disappointed. Revelation can mean so many things, so many different things. A revelation can be thought of as a light bulb moment, an instant recognition of an idea or new conclusions drawn that haven't been considered before. A eureka moment, excitement at realizing a new thing. For me, the feeling of instant revelation is as much fun as the actual information itself. Revelation can also refer to the releasing of information from one group to another, often in a top-down fashion. When I hear the phrase, "more will be revealed," I think that there's more information coming, just not right now, because all the data hasn't been collected, or maybe because the people controlling the information don't want to release it to us just yet. This is my own very broad description and interpretation of Revelation, and not really drawn from Revelation as the Bible intended. James Luther Adams, the liberal religious scholar who revisioned the 5 smooth stones of Goliath, described Revelation as continuous rather than static and unchanging. In this modern interpretation of Revelation lies the idea that knowledge, decision-making, and access to complex ideas is available to everyone, not just the experts way up there in the ivory tower. In my upbringing in the 60s and 70s, I was taught to blindly accept information and direction from the experts, parents, doctors, policemen, teachers, clergy, the President of the United States, because their authority meant that they knew what was best for us and they would never leave us astray. Laugh. I thought it was fun. It seems archaic now, that notion. For baby boomers and Gen Xers who came of age before social media gave everyone a 24/7 platform to rebut authority and traditional thought, letting go of the hierarchical nature of dispensing news and information seemed at first refreshing. Now the onslaught of opinions and radical positions on social media have turned into a free-for-all that is moving at a pace far too rapid for the experts to manage and keep in check. Disastrous political outcomes are just one of the results of the new information age of social media. So, to recap, rather than waiting for Walter Cronkite or Tom Brokaw or fill in the blank to tell me what's happening, I can just go out there and know things without being told by an expert. Those poor experts, they will lose their power and control. In fact, it seems like they already have. A woman I know who's in her mid-70s and is still working full-time as an interpreter of medical terminology from Japanese to English once said to me, "Back in the 70s, I went to the doctor, he told me what to do, and I said, 'Yes, sir.'" That sums up the relationship I had to authority in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up. Revelation is not static, it is continuous. We aren't waiting for the time and place when all will be revealed. Rather, it is up to us to be open to new revelations as they appear. If you subscribe to the traditional teaching that the truth to be revealed is one truth that will be revealed by knowing God or being told by a religious professional what the truth is, then we have no say in or ownership of the interpretation of the revelation. My own relationship to information growing up was to wait for the information and to be told what is right and what to do. My reliance on the experts teetered because of the way I was raised, it teetered between respect and fear of authority. Control of information and the power to influence the masses was a lot simpler in the 70s. I was 12 years old in 1974 when Richard Nixon, the 37th US president, was impeached for obstructing the investigation of the now infamous Watergate scandal. Back then, as we all remember, most of us, I think, Nixon's impeachment was a deep disgrace, and he resigned the office of the presidency to prevent ending up in prison. My father was an attorney and deeply invested in the hours and hours of hearings on television, and the 12-year-old me watched the hearings with him. There were only 3 channels back in the day, and only 1 television in our house, so my whole family experienced the Watergate hearings together along with the rest of the country. My big takeaway from this period and this little snapshot in history was that the person holding office was disgraced, but the office itself is still worthy of respect. Like my father, I was then and am now an institutionalist and went on to major in political science at the University of Washington. I left behind my deeply ingrained adherence to minding authority when I first set foot on campus. I started figuring out on my own what I needed to learn, discover, refine, interpret, and most importantly, discard in the way of information and what was being taught. I figured out that the difference between the facts being taught and the opinions and interpretations of the content deliverers. I also developed discernment in selecting peers, mentors, and the experts from whom I would draw my own conclusions. Revelation is not static. I'm continuously revising my views as I broaden my horizons. Being part of a liberal religious community allows us this agency and autonomy to reach our own conclusions and evolve our relationship with our own theology and the minister who partners with us in this evolution. I dedicate the lighting of the chalice to the unknown and the equal opportunity in discovering that which we have left to learn. Please join me in reciting the affirmation printed in your order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be. Now please rise as in body and spirit, and we'll have a hymn.
So this first one is going to be, we're going to sit at the welcome table. So it's pretty repetitive, so as soon as you know what the verse is, you can kind of go from there. But I am going to have my hymnal up. And we're relying on the recording, so who knows what will happen, but we'll do our best.
So, for our Time for All Ages today, I want to talk about how growing up I was horrible at math. Like, really, really bad at math. So bad that even the thought of doing any sort of math would give me anxiety. All the way through high school, all the way into college even, I struggled. And then one term in college, as a philosophy major, I was required to take an introduction to logic class. Basically, it's math with symbols, minus all the numbers, you just have symbols and all of this, and it was intimidating. But I knew I had to take this class in order to continue down my path of study. I met with my professor somewhere near just shortly after the midterm and was struggling, and he said, just hang in there, Zach. Eventually, things will fall into place and you'll get it, trust me. I had heard the same thing about math my whole life up until this point, and so needless to say, I wasn't feeling super trusting. But I stayed in the class, and then one day, it was about this time of year, something happened. I was driving home from probably Thanksgiving actually, visiting my family out on the coast, and it was the middle of the night, and making my way back up to Bellingham, no one was on the road. It was just me in the dark with my music going. I think I was in a big Jack Johnson phase right then and there, so you could imagine the wild time I was having. When suddenly, coming up I-5, somewhere in the Skagit River Valley, something clicked. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but in that moment, there was something inside of me that shifted, like a light bulb went. I thought I understood logic. Imagine that. I went home after that experience, and something about my way of approaching the problems, the proofs that we were given, changed. I had a revelation, and suddenly all of these symbols on a page made sense to me. They flowed together like water over a waterfall, arriving at the conclusion. Perhaps you've had moments like this in your life. Moments when maybe you're driving or walking somewhere. Moments in the shower, or maybe in that space in between sleep and awake where a new insight comes to you. These insights I think of as revelation, and we'll explore more of that later in the sermon. But for now, I would give you this story as a way of introducing the topic and inviting you to begin to think about your own personal revelations. I'd like to invite you into a centering moment with me. However you feel most comfortable, to let yourself relax into this space, into the chair supporting you, feeling the earth beneath your feet as you breathe. I share these words by my colleague, Reverend Kate Walker. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, between moments, events, results, action, no action. To stand on the threshold, waiting for something to end. and something new to arrive, a pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, a shadow of something different, in between innovation and acceptance, in between symptoms and diagnosis, in between send and receipt of inquiry and question, in between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. A ritual begun. Pause. Look back at what once was. Look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches for something uncomfortable to wear. In between lighting a match and the kindling of oil, in between choosing a text and reading the words, in between voices and notes carried through the air into the ears to hear, in between creative thrusts that move us ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble and structures may fall. Communities may revolt or tempt trust. Tradition may falter or creativity crash forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between storm predicted, the horizon beacons. In between theology of process reminds us to step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes and mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, look, listen, feel, and breathe. In between, we find revelation. May it be so. I'm, oh, can you hear? Sorry. I had planned after the centering moment today to offer a piece of special music, but for a variety of reasons, I'm not up for singing this morning. And so I'd ask that we just omit that and move forward to our joys and sorrows.
Each Sunday, we share our joys and sorrows as we feel called. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you'd like to share, please come forward, tell us your name and a brief sentence or two about your joy. If you have a joy, place a little water in the bowl. If you have a sorrow, place a stone in the bowl for us to help you carry the burden. time for him.
So our hymn is number 126, I think, right? Come thou fount of every blessing. I keep wanting to say font, but it's not.
Be doers of the word and not merely hearers. Those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act. They will be blessed in their doing. Will the ushers please come forward for the offering? Thank you for your generous gifts.
All I can say to all of you is don't get sick. I'm sitting here and as Nancy said, feeling better mentally, but just keep feeling congested and breathing is difficult. Anyway, today we're exploring Revelation. And this is a concept for, I think, many in the liberal religious traditions that we struggle to wrestle with, despite many of the prominent theologians in our tradition. I'm thinking of James Luther Adams, placing Revelation as a central feature of our faith tradition. Specifically thinking of when James Luther Adams says that Revelation is not sealed, that there is an ongoing nature to what is being revealed. But I want to go back a little bit and talk about Revelation in a slightly different context and tell a bit of a story. In 1743, a 55-year-old man living in Sweden began to have a series of mysterious dreams and visions about the spiritual reality of life. Many of these experiences invited him into a personal wrestling with what he felt was an internal sense of lacking worthiness or a compulsion to purify himself of some sinful force that these visions led him to believe within. These experiences continued over the next few years, 2 years about, before this individual began to record his experiences. Over the next 25 years, this man, Emanuel Swedenborg, went on to write what amounted to be tens of thousands of pages documenting these dreams and visions that he had. I think that there's a good chance that if this individual had been anyone else, we may not even know about all of these experiences he documented today. But because of who he was, these writings have been preserved. Emanuel Swedenborg was the son of a Lutheran bishop and was an accomplished engineer in his own right, specifically an engineer in metalworking, fabricating parts, and the construction of mining shafts and equipments. Not only had he, prior to his visions, written several quintessential texts about various properties of metal and engineered inconceivable bridges and military structures, but most notably, in my opinion, the young Emanuel famously devised a series of dry docks and hydraulic pumps that allowed him to move a small fleet of military vessels 14 miles overland, helping the King of Sweden win a battle and secure a territory dispute. Quite an impressive feat, if you ask me, moving ships 14 miles overland. But despite all this, that isn't what Emanuel is remembered for. It's perhaps why we remember what he's remembered for, but it's not what he was known for. One of the more prominent visions that Emanuel had was a vision that he documented in a text titled Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell was a complex exploration of the layers of the cosmic order that Emanuel believed were in place. If you've ever read the book Dante's Divine Comedy, or sometimes it's, Paradise and the Inferno are the two important features of it, you'll get a sense of the sort of genre of text that Emanuel was writing in his visionary experience, mapping out of sort of what happens in the afterlife to people who are both good and bad, heaven and hell in his case. Now, I would note that despite the extraordinary nature of Swedenborg's visions, he did believe that he was still being guided by an angelic or Christ-like force throughout these experiences. And so, as he published, many of his texts started to become kind of popular among Christian mystics. Because of this popularity and these books being preserved from his time, we have these books today, and I will say that they are something that I classify in the category of revelation. Now, I will say that I classify these as revelation not because the things that are contained within the works of Swedenborg necessarily have a literal truth for me. But I classify them because there is something about the process by which these ideas were brought into the world by Swedenborg that changed the world. It moved the world from one state of being or knowledge into another. Before I go further, though, I think it would be helpful to describe what it is exactly I mean by revelation. I think, like many people, and like Nancy pointed out at the beginning, when we hear the word revelation, we go to a religious context. Specifically, for many folks, we think of the book of Revelation, the book that often is included at the end of the Christian scriptures. That was my understanding of this word for a long time. It was either this idea of revelation or somehow a concept of revelation being this from on high, a new truth is revealed to you. But what I've come to understand about revelation is it's less the disclosure and more of the process that we engage in. I came to have this understanding of the word, this use of the word revelation, when I was back in community college. I took an English class, English 102, which is one of the first classes where you start writing about literature. For anyone who's an English major, you've probably taken a similar composition class at some point. It's the follow-up to English 101. Anyway, at the beginning of this course, our instructor came in and distributed a list of words. This was a list of words with things on it like love, trust, hope, perseverance, and ironically to me, revelation. I say ironic because when I looked at the list of the words, all the other things included were either orientations towards life or felt experiences of emotion. Love and hope can be felt. Perseverance can be an orientation towards life. But for whatever reason, the word revelation didn't fit on this list to me. It was an outlier. So when we were told to select a word off the list and go up to the board and write it on the board, I, of course, being an oddball, chose the word revelation. Little did I know the nightmare I was setting myself up for when I chose this word, because no sooner had we finished the assignment of writing our words on the board than our instructor informed us that the word we had selected was going to be our theme word for the term. It was the word through which we were supposed to filter all of our analysis of the texts that we read, the theme that we were supposed to anchor all of our reflections and thoughts about our experience with the literature we encountered back to. This was a challenge at first, starting with this literal definition of the word revelation. An idea that this was an on-high transmission or a sort of top-down way of having something revealed to you. But soon, with the help of Google, I noticed that revelation as a word, as a concept, gets used in many different ways. You might say it was a shocking revelation. Literally, it was a shocking revelation because that phrase, it was a shocking revelation, was the phrase that helped me expand my understanding of this term. I don't know about you, but if you've ever gone on to Google and searched for the term revelation, what oftentimes comes up is a series of articles from tabloids and gossip magazines that make use of the phrase, "It was a shocking revelation." Oftentimes, this phrase is applied to some situation in which new, often salacious information is revealed. Sometimes it's a love affair or some new dynamic in a revelation. Reality TV is full of shocking revelations. Realizing this use of the word, I decided to go with this angle on my theme of revelation. I came to think of the word revelation not as a top-down revealing, but is a sort of process that moves us from a place of unknowing into a sudden place of knowing, not through any external means, but through our own wrestling. When I think of my way of defining revelation, the image that comes to mind for me is the image of the reverse of a bubble popping. Not a bubble being blown where it comes off of the wand and comes into the air, but if you think about a bubble popping, the way it disperses. For me, revelation is the opposite. It's the process by which from nothing something comes into being. That this bubble forms from the nothingness, the particles draw together. It's a stroke of insight, or the light bulb moments that Nancy mentioned. That for whatever reason, something has caused us to perceive the world differently. That revelations bring a noticeable change. In the words that I shared during our centering moment from Reverend Kate Walker, she writes about entering liminality. She says, liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. Entering this space of liminality is important. I think we all at times have had to be in these liminal spaces. But staying in a liminal space perpetually is impractical. And that's where revelation comes in. For me, revelation offers us a way through these liminal moments, but only if we are open to engaging the unknown, to ponder in it and consider what might come next, what can be brought into being from this liminal space. In my own life, I've experienced this phenomenon, as I mentioned in our Time for All Ages, when driving, or the shower thought moments when I'm thinking about something and suddenly in the shower it comes to me. Sometimes it's in that in-between liminal space between awake and sleep. Because of the nature of how these revelations come, I've developed a habit in my own life of keeping a notebook with me almost all places I go, so I can jot down the ideas, the insights that come to me. For times when I'm driving and I've learned that I'm quick to forget things, instead of writing, I use my voice memo app on my phone and talk to myself to capture these insights that come in these liminal spaces. So that's a bit about revelation, this process by which we are moved through the liminal space into a new reality. And thinking of all that, I want to turn back to the person of Emanuel Swedenborg and consider why it is that I classify the works that he wrote as being works of revelation. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a Swedenborgian. That's what the followers today of Swedenborg's teachings are called. I'm not a Swedenborgian, and there are many things about Swedenborg's work that I personally don't agree with. There are some that I do. I think there are some points about ethics that he makes quite well, but that's another topic. Why I think that Swedenborg's work falls into the category of revelation is because it changed the world. What do I mean by this? During his lifetime, Swedenborg, despite having all of his works published right up until his death, was insistent that he was not attempting to start a new religious movement. However, not long after his death, it didn't take long for a community in London who were familiar with his works to organize themselves into what is still today known as the Church of the New Jerusalem. This church was small and still is small today, though I went to seminary with a few Swedenborgian ministers. They're a very small mystical sect, but that's not the Swedenborgian side of things isn't what I want to talk about. Based in this community individuals from London went out and began to spread the works of Swedenborg. You may have heard of an individual from American folk tales known as Johnny Appleseed. What is not known by many is that Johnny Appleseed was a Swedenborgian missionary. The stories of his life say that he would take the works of Swedenborg and divide the rather large volumes into multiple sections by literally ripping the books in half. Then he would travel throughout upstate New York in an area known as the Burned Over District because of the intense amount of spiritual curiosity and experimentation that happened there. It was said that it was burned over by the Holy Spirit. He would travel through the Burned Over District, through towns like Rochester, Canandaigua, Palmyra, New York, all places that still exist today. And he would distribute portions of these texts as he traveled, planting apple trees and cultivating orchards along the way so he would have a source of food. Each year, as he made his route throughout this area, he would exchange different sections of these books, allowing people in these small towns to eventually read the entirety of his work. In the 1810s, a young man by the name of Joseph Smith came in contact with the works of Emanuel Swedenborg. Joseph, in his biography and his own writing, was not so forthcoming in connecting his connection to these works. Partly because if you know of Joseph Smith, you may know that he is the individual who eventually founded the religious movement that we know today as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known informally as the Mormons. Joseph, in his own theological reflections, borrowed a lot of ideas from the works of Emanuel Swedenborg. He added some of his own flavors, but specifically, he borrowed portions of Emanuel's writing from the text Heaven and Hell that I mentioned. If you're familiar with Mormon theology, you may know that there is a belief in different levels of afterlife: the telestial, the terrestrial, and the celestial kingdoms. Interestingly, these terms are wholesale taken from the works of Emanuel Swedenborg, though not credited to him. I am sure there was a motive behind that. It's because of the way that Emanuel's work continued to shape and helped form this new religious movement that I consider them revelation. But revelation in this sense was not sealed. It continued to grow. Joseph Smith added to it. And even after his death, the LDS Church divided in many places. Today, we may know about the fundamentalist LDS sect formerly led by Warren Jeffs, as well as the liberal offshoot of the LDS Church known as the Community of Christ. But beyond that, many smaller splinter groups formed, which is what I want to talk about briefly. Because we've explored the idea of revelation being this process, this continual revealing, this continual moving from one state of being to the next, one mode of knowing to the next. But what happens when we reach a point where we are told that revelation is sealed? What happens when we reach a point where we are told all that can be known is known? Well, following this same course of history, this same trajectory from Emanuel Swedenborg down through Joseph Smith into the 20th century, we get a story of what can happen, the dangers when revelation is completed. In the late 1970s, a splinter group broke away from the LDS Church in Utah. They called themselves the School of the happened. What? Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you. The School of the Prophets was a school that broke away from the LDS Church with a leader who believed that their version of revelation was the ultimate truth. This led to all sorts of interesting conclusions within their community dynamics, but most tragically was a series of murders that the members of this group committed in 1984. If you've ever read John Krakauer's book, Under the Banner of Heaven, you might be familiar with this story. The story of brothers who, believing they had the ultimate truth, took the life of many of their family members, thinking that it was the only way to achieve their salvation. So, all of that is to say that when revelation becomes completed, we have a problem. When the door to new insight and understanding closes, the possibility for change becomes locked behind it. Without an acceptance of continued revelation, without a possibility that we might be wrong or more information might change our feelings on a situation, we run the risk of becoming rigid and danger embracing delusional ways of thinking. At best, thinking that revelation is sealed leads our institutions to become antiquated, falling by the wayside as the rest of the world moves on. And at worst, thinking that revelation is completed leads to serious harm. We are a people who I often say are united by the questions, not the answers. And so I share this reflection in the spirit that we may embrace the continued revelation that exists in and among us, to the glory of life.
All right, so our closing hymn is hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. And should we remain standing after we sing, or? Yes. Okay, great.
We'll
Please join me in the recitation, the call and response to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our service today has ended, but our service to the world and one another begins anew. May we go forth with this space, embracing the emergent gift of liminality and transformation that Revelation offers. May it be so. Thank you all for your patience and willingness to go on this experiment today. I look forward to being back in person soon.